Board of Trustees. Everyone will please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If we could have the reading of the mission and vision, please.
Richmond Community Schools guide students on pathways of learning to a future of limitless possibilities.
The vision statement: Richmond Community Schools, a collaborative community nurturing mind, body, and spirit to prepare students for lives of choice, purpose, and service.
Thank you both. Moving on to item 2, celebrations. Dr. Wright.
President Weber, trustees, I ask that Mrs. Bridget Hazelbaker, our communications coordinator, come to us with tonight's celebratory educator. Mrs. Hazelbaker, welcome back, ma'am.
Hello, all right. Of course, I would love for you to be able to speak to our guests tonight, but also I want you to also look at the screens behind you a little bit. So before I ask her to come up here, Miss India Cruz Griffin is a Richmond High School graduate. She then earned her bachelor's degree in education from Ball State University, and she has taught art ever since. In addition to teaching, she creates folding layered collage work with overlays of different materials and paints. Her bold colors, shapes, and patterns interact to illuminate stories of love, pride, and family inspired by her Indiana childhood. She exhibits frequently around the tri-state area, and her work is held in prominent museum collections, including the Indiana Governor's Residence and civic venues like Eskenazi Hospital in Indianapolis and here at Reed Health. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mrs. India Cruz Griffin. She had a great big exhibit just prior to our last board meeting. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. As you can see go ahead and explain what we have up there.
Okay, so what you're seeing on the board right now, or on the screen right now, is half of a diptych, and it's actually 4 feet by 12 feet when they're put together. The story is of the Dust Bowl and the area around the Dust Bowl. We were given different themes. When they chose us, they just asked us to send our website and 3 pieces of work. And then out of many, many people, they ended up choosing 22. They gave us an option.
Who they is.
Oh, they. They is the Indiana Arts Council and the Pacers organization, and I think it's CBI is the name of the business organization that's involved as well. And so they asked us what themes we wanted. But basically everybody said that it was whatever they would give us, and so I ended up having the 1955 championship with addicts, farm communities, and growing a basketball team, and then the other one was addicts and the Dust Bowl.
So where are these displayed at?
They are at Gamebridge, of course, Field House. They are on the Key Bank Suites. And from what I understand, is that you can ask to go to see it, but it is around the suites, and these are right next to the owner's suite. So the Pacers owners, and then my pictures. And they go around like in a whole circle when you go around the suites. So there's many other pictures as well, but my 4 are right there. And that's me.
So tell us a little bit who all you were able to take to the ceremony.
The ceremony was pretty interesting. What they did was they said, could you please ask your family, friends that you consider family, and then anyone who's helped in the process. And so there are several different people in the community because there's a whole insurance issue that had to be taken care of. And so they wanted us to try to do that locally, so I have that as well. And can I say it was McQuiston Insurance? Is that right? Okay. And then Wetzel, Honda helped out tremendously. There's so many people, but and then Carvin Reinhardt, and I don't know, my husband remembers most of the names because believe me, I have a lot of information up there now about this whole program. But I do want to thank, I have the chance of the community because those people really stepped in, and it's way more than those people. But those are the ones who jumped in like right away when I was like, oh no, we have to have this done, this done, this done. So.
questions?
I just want to say we're so proud of you.
Oh, thank you.
That is a huge honor, and
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
like, that's our India. That's
Oh,
our
yeah.
girl.
I'm still that Indian, you know.
Yes.
But it was an amazing experience. The research that we had to do was just crazy, but it was so much fun. And the people that I met, I had to go to different venues, but it was so funny because once you tell someone, oh, I'm doing the artwork for this, they're like, oh, and then they're like, well, what's your theme? And I told them, and then people like jumped right in on it. And like older people were telling me, oh, back then, I remember this. And so it was very cool. It's very cool.
Since Lindsay's here, I want to put you on the spot and have you introduce who you brought with you
Oh,
today.
yes. So I have my family with me. Of course, my husband, Quinn. And then that's my youngest daughter, Lindsay. She's a Richmond High School grad, and she's going to soon be a nurse from Ball State. And then her boyfriend, Cody. Say hi, everybody.
I have one of your pieces hanging.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say,
Yeah.
I've got one.
my
too.
office is generally in disarray, but around the walls, it's not so much so, and I'm proud to have a number print of Dixie.
Oh, well, thank
So,
you. I appreciate it.
I'll get with you, and you can let
Okay.
me know if I need to change my financial statement.
Oh.
Can you tell us about the process, like how you
Like how I actually do the
yeah,
work.
how you make it? I know it's paper and paint and
Yeah.
probably glue and other things. And how does it all come together?
Well, it's crazy in a way. I start with actually the theme of no matter what I do with artwork, and then I actually tear paper, and then I put on a base, and then I put on like another base of what maybe the people will look like, and maybe what the background looks like. But I will tell you, I've showed people the beginning picture of even the ones at Gamebridge, and they're like, what, are you like a genie in a bottle or something? How does this work? Because it is hard to see the picture, but the process is the part that's the harder part. Painting goes like that, but it's getting it laid out, getting the right, dimensions, I call them paper dolls, but I cut out things and then I put them on there. But I have a whole process. I use certain magazines, I look at them upside down, tear out for texture, color, separate all that. I mean, it's a process. And then I have a specific glue that I don't talk about, but it works. It works. People are always asking me, I'm not ever telling. But it took me a while to get to that process, so it is completely encased, and so nothing's really gonna happen. When we were up there, little kids were looking at it, and it went right over and put their hand out, and the mom's like, don't touch, and I said, it is true, you shouldn't touch artwork, but you can touch this one. You just have to wipe it off when it's done.
India, was Nicholson in one of those?
Nicholson School,
Uh-huh.
this is actually in Indianapolis,
Okay.
and it's the Dust Bowl area.
In the
looks
first one that was on there, it looked like
There's
a
a
replica.
school.
Uh-huh.
Well, there is a school there, and I can briefly tell you about that. When I was doing the research, I had no idea about what Lockfield Gardens was.
Mhm.
And Quentin and I actually went up there. I did the research before. We actually walked IUPUI to find all of the areas. What I found out later is the reason why the Dust Bowl's there, people were like, oh, that's where kids had to go during segregation. But the reality is that was their playground.
Yep.
It's shaped like this, and right here is a school. And then it was the apartment buildings, and then it was the Dust Bowl. Before that, everything was complete housing. So when I keep touching stuff, sorry. So when I took and put things together, Bridget, do you know how to go back here? And put it back?
Can you have it go back one more time?
So when I took and put it together, what I did was I tried to recreate some of those houses that I knew were there before. And then I tried to recreate the school. Over to the far left is Eskenazi Hospital. And in this picture, you cannot see Addicts School, but Addicts is on the first one all the way to the right. So the housing in between is just representing of the housing was there. The church in the picture, and I talked about that on my actual art page, the church there is more reminiscent of my own church that I went to with my grandmother in Rushville, Indiana, not the huge church that was there in Indianapolis. But I have told people, and I think it's a pretty cool part of the story, so I will tell you this. In the process of creating this and talking about Oscar Robertson and all of those, I was really narrowing in on the individual players and the people and what it was like to live there. And I never really knew that much about Indianapolis. Everybody always knows about, Madam C.J. Walker, but they don't really know that it was a thriving community, and it just depended on what reporter you were talking to as the twist they put on the story. But in the process, I was looking, and I tell the story because it's so funny. I've researched all the time, but I'm at the table on Sunday morning, I'm researching, my kids were all home, and I'm looking through it, I was reading about Oscar Robertson, and lo and behold, it started talking about, for some reason, when they won in 1955, they had to disclose where they lived. I don't know why they did that, but they did. But the funny thing is it said, well, the interesting thing about Oscar Robertson is that only 2 people lived in the home that he lived in. And the last owner was Gladys Cruz, which is my grandmother's sister. Now, the freaky thing about that is I always went and stayed with my grandma in the summer since I was 2 years old. I always thought my Aunt Gladys lived from here to there, I never knew that they all lived in Indianapolis. So when I did, then of course I had to check into it. But when it talked about it, it's like, the reality is my family as young people, my grandmother and her sister and their children and their husband lived there. And so it gave me a different perspective. And so, because I'm going, well, how could that reporter say this, when, I know how my family was. So that was a really cool part about it. And that's when I knew it was meant for me to tell this story. So I really dwelled into the people, what they did, the famous people that came out of that situation. So I tried to represent as well as possible. I will tell you though, the Dust Bowl, this looks vacant compared to the real photographs. Wall-to-wall people were sitting on the slides, hanging on top of the swings, watching these games. It was major ball. It wasn't just out there playing around. Little kids did not get a chance to play. So I learned a lot of way cool stuff that, I've got so much energy about this. It'll be a while.
And we love that you're sharing it with us, Mrs.
Yeah.
Cruz Griffin, and more importantly, we sincerely appreciate you coming to share the
And
experience.
I appreciate that, because I'm telling you, I can't stop talking.
Oh, no. But
It's been a great experience.
I think what's great is that we have a resident expert right here in Richmond Community Schools sharing her passion, her love with the students of Richmond. And in your very own classroom was when I learned not to draw this way, but to hold the utensil this way. When I was a student myself, many moons ago. But nevertheless, being that I've served there, just a little bit, just a little bit. Walton was with me, but nevertheless, having served there in that greater Indianapolis area for more than 2 decades, the fact that you even caught you were able to capture the soapbox heel in one of your photographs, and the Derby, the Dust Bowl, as you referenced. If we all can imagine the Gus Mackers of old, there on the campus of IU East, if you can imagine that entire audience, that entire experience, conversed and condensed into a small community.
That's right.
With nothing but, and they call it dust because a lot of times they didn't necessarily have asphalt.
Well, there wasn't asphalt. What happened is they played on, it started as dirt, but they played on it so much it kind of hardened. And so they said you could hear a basketball like we can hear basketballs now if someone's out there at night. They said you could hear it hitting that dirt. But the fact that you were able to research, find out, and then capture it all just speaks to the essence of art, and also again to your passion and just bringing it all out. And so, just kudos to you. Congratulations, as you mentioned. This is not something that's beholden to everyone, but they select you for your talent. As has been mentioned in my office, was a India Cruz Griffin art feature. However, Richmond Art Museum took it back from me because they had to feature it for everyone. So they said I could no longer hoard it. And I think within your art, if I understood, finding out history about your own art, you always incorporate your daughters in your art, and the colors, yellow and red, are. And little known fact too, is that Quentin's hands are those hands. When you see it in person, there's hands, see them at the bottom of the screen? Those are actually Quentin's hands. And so he got to be the person that looked like they were in the screen.
So it's a family affair.
Yeah, and even the one at the museum, Lindsay and Lauren were actually 5 and 8, I think, in that one. And those are their hands on the girls, and then that's my hand on the mom in the picture. So yeah, I put my family in everything.
Yeah. Well, again, as I said, kudos to you, and it's just, I think, great representation of the type of talent we have in our classrooms with our educators, and when you all can indeed innovatively create such lessening and such experiences, yes, again, congratulations.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And thank all of the school system, because I'm going to tell you, this was hard. And without Ray and the staff over there just helping me maneuver, and my friends at the school, the community, I just want to say, thank you.
Well, and
it wasn't just me.
It's also great that you know a little bit about basketball. The crew's name is synonymous with championships and success.
That's a whole other story.
No doubt
about it. I found out a whole bunch of other stuff at the same time about
That's
that.
right.
So my family goes way back with
That's right.
basketball. Very surprising, but it did. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I know.
Moving on to item 3, public commentary. We have 2 people wanting to speak, so I'll read a brief statement. The Board of School Trustees recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of allowing members of the public to express themselves on corporation matters. The board wants to ensure the public feels welcome and that the concerns are answered in a timely, efficient manner. The maximum time for individual speakers is 5 minutes per person. The board expects personal decorum and factual information from the speaker. The president reserves the right to interrupt the speaker when the statement is too lengthy, personally directive, abusive, and obscene, or if it interferes with the orderly conduct of the meeting. Comments recognizing both their staff and students are always welcome. However, critical remarks concerning specific school personnel or students are to be made through the complaint process available in policy 8130. School members do not respond to public comments during the meeting. The public participant may receive a personal follow-up email from the board president within a week. Thank you. Mrs. Claypool.
Mary Ann Avery.
Good evening. First I want to say, after hearing India, I was one of the teachers that got to go and see the installation, and it was just amazing. And I'm so grateful to serve with teachers and staff that are so dedicated, not only to their students, but to their craft and to their community. And there are a lot of teachers like that at Richmond Community Schools. It's one of the things that makes me really proud to be here. Thank you, board. Last time you met, I had already left, but I understand that you're looking at rolling back the dollar health benefits. I really appreciate you revisiting that, and I appreciate it very much. We had another staff member say that they are going to work for another job at $22 an hour, so we still have that same problem. And I also wanted to take the opportunity to request that the public who is watching to really take seriously their obligation to vote and their obligation to educate themselves on our state senator, our state representative, who is going to best fight for public education. And that's one issue. There are many issues, but that's a really important one. So I just wanted to make that request of our public viewers, and thank you.
Thank you.
Emily Sherrill.
Hello. I'm here to talk about something that is really exciting, really fabulous that's going on with Richmond Community Schools. several of the school board members are already aware because we had a talk. I am a member, obviously, of the Richmond Education Association and ISTA and our Racial Equity Coalition. And we have been so blessed to have such amazing administrators and board members to support what it is that we are doing. And so I actually wrote out what I intend to say. It's okay if I read. I feel bad. So I'm here to talk about the positive impact of the diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, which are underway throughout RCS and the entire Richmond community. Since RCS partnered with REA and the Racial Equity Coalition, we've had some very, very valuable talks. We've undertaken some important steps in advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion, an important board goal, very important board goal, throughout our district. These efforts continue to increase our students' opportunities to grow, learn, and be successful while also celebrating the growing diversity of our population and nurturing the inclusive environment that is RCS. Through our collaborative endeavors, we are embracing knowledge of and practices and policies about diversity, equity, and inclusion. The voices of all stakeholders are part of this conversation. Community members, teachers, administrators, board members, and most importantly, I believe the voices of our students. It's truly a beautiful thing to see administrators, teachers, and students sitting down together to learn about and enact positive initiatives which support diversity, equity, and inclusion. And RCS is leading the way in our area, in our entire area of this state, in our increased focus on DEI. This has been no small undertaking, and the work continues every day. We will not be done. This is a lifelong promise to our community. And it's an exciting time to be part of RCS and the community of Richmond as we continue united to make sure that all members of our community know that they're valued. And I look forward to even more opportunities for us to lead the way. I also look forward to our students having the opportunity to speak with you about the positive directions our DEI efforts are headed, because they would like to. They would like to talk with all of you. They are, after all, our highest priority and the most valuable members of our schools. And I just cannot tell you enough. Our kids are excited, our teachers are excited, our admin's excited, the school board members that I've spoken with are excited. It's a great time to be part of Richmond Community Schools. So that's all I have to say. If you have questions, you can email me.
Thank you. Moving on to item 4, consent items. Dr. Wright.
President Weber, trustees, I come before you this evening to ask for approval of consent items 4.01 through 4.06, along with the addendum associated with 4.02 as presented.
Thank
I
you.
will motion that we approve the consent items 4.01 through 4.06, including the addendum as presented.
Motion by Brad Walton,
I'll second.
second by Nicole Stoltz. Any questions or comments?
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
if I might, so that we can let every board member have the benefit of the three-way conversation that you and Member Slifer and I had beforehand. A patron noted that the consent agenda, noted to me, is just as it appears on our printed agenda. And when we go online, we have access to DocsPop, and I guess I wasn't very inquisitive, so I just assumed that what I could see when I go on the authenticate piece was what the public could see. It isn't as it relates to HR, I've been told, and hasn't been through the prior administration. So that is a bit of a problem now, because I think you may recall this past, I think it was the 22 legislature, passed a law that basically says the public has the right to comment and make public comment on any matter that the board is going to take final action on in a given meeting, final action being a vote, before they do that. And the way we were doing it in the past, under the prior protocol of the prior administration, was that HR matters did not become available to the public until after they've been voted on. So that will change going forward. It must change. So with that advisement, you're all up to speed. And I should probably have been more inquisitive when I saw that header administrative content. I admit I wasn't. But so that you all know.
Yeah.
Any
Thank you,
questions?
Mr. Cross.
Thank
Thank you, sir.
Any additional questions or comments?
I was just gonna comment that one of our consent items, the grants, was really exciting to see the grant work that I know Mrs. Laudermilk and Sonsini have worked on for Hibbert and the new Steve integration. I know we'll probably talk about that more, maybe with the education portion later on, but I'm glad to see a grant for almost $75,000 to
Huge.
move that along.
Yes. Anything else?
I just want to be sure, going to Attorney Cross's comments, that's something that we can get changed and get up to date
We
prior
change
to
next
the
meeting.
next meeting. Okay. You know, I've been so used to just going on my site and getting all the information, not aware that what I see, I've got total access to everything, but that's very important. Thank you
Yeah,
for bringing
I
that.
made the same assumption.
Yeah.
It was an assumption.
Yeah. All right.
I concur with that. When we submit the agenda, I don't designate it, I just submit it, so there was no understanding that it wasn't publicly available.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it will be from here on.
yes.
Any additional questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6-0. And I will add one comment. That was a change with the previous administration. I apologize to the public for us not catching that until this time. And if anyone has any concerns or questions, you can forward them to the administration or the school board, and we can further talk. But as of now, those will go live Monday morning when the agenda goes live, and so there should not be any problem in the future. Moving on to item 5, action items. 5.01, donations. Dr. Wright.
President Weber and trustees, I ask that Mrs. Scalf, our Chief Financial Officer, join us in presenting for approval action items 5.01, 5.02, as well as 5.04, or would we like to wait and,
We
okay,
can skip to it. I'm okay with that if
Okay.
everybody else is. Okay.
just to keep her up at the same time that you read.
Okay.
Mrs. Scalf.
Good evening. Tonight before you are $12,417.36 in donations. We would like to thank the public for each of these generous gifts. And I will read through the list rather quickly because it's kind of long tonight. So Philip and Mary Bolser donated to the RHS girls basketball team. Reed Health donated for Boston Run t-shirts in our elementary levels. Candace Deaver donated to the orchestra class. Ryan Kate donated to the RHS Bleacher Creatures. John Jetmore, Lucinda and Darren Roberts, and David and Sherry Jetmore donated to the band at RHS. Delta Kappa Gamma Society, Kappa Chapter, donated to the AVP class at RHS. The Leland Legacy donated to the RHS Choir. Delta Kappa Gamma Society, Kappa Chapter also donated to the Drama Club at RHS. Wayne Bank and Trust donated to the boys basketball team at RHS. Reed Health donated to the athletic department and training program. Donors Choose provided lab coats for the Hibbard science students. Mr. and Mrs. Tony Broadwell donated to the RHS football team in memory of Mr. Ken Jordan. Dot Foods donated both to the cross country team and the football team at RHS. Indiana Farm Bureau Insurance and Blue Buffalo both donated to the RHS boys basketball team, and the RHS Alumni Association donated to the RHS Bleacher Creatures. So it's my recommendation tonight that with great thanks, the board accept these donations.
Thank you.
I move that we accept action item 5.01, the donations.
Second.
Motion by Nicole Stoltz, second by Aaron Stevens. Any questions or comments? I will add the thank you to the community from the board and the school system. Anything else? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6-0. Mrs. Scout?
Okay, tonight before you is the recommendation for the bid award on the Charles roof replacement. The bids were received and opened on Tuesday, October 11th, 2022. The notice to bidders was published in the Palladium item on September 18th and September 25th, 2022. Proof of publication and all bid documents are on file in the business office. The receipt of the bid report is attached for your information. On board docs, it is recommended that the bid be awarded to Chommel & Son Inc. with a base bid of $175,000, as well as alternates 1 through 4. Alternate 1 being for $170,000, alternate 2 for $57,000, alternate 3 for $56,000, and alternate 4 for $44,000. It's my recommendation tonight that the Charles roof replacement bid be awarded to Chommel & Son Inc.
Thank you.
I'll make the motion that we accept the bid as presented.
Motion by Jeff Schleifer,
Second.
second by Kristen Brunton. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6-0. Mrs. Scout?
Okay, tonight before you is the bid award for the Dennis HVAC project. Bids for the Dennis Intermediate School HVAC upgrade replacement were received and opened on Wednesday, October 12th, 2022. The notice to bidders was published in the Palladium item on September 9th and September 16th, 2022. Proof of publication and all bid documents are on file in the business office. It's recommended tonight that the bid be awarded to Carroll Electric as follows. So I am going to read through this and then we can talk about the recommendation postings. Funded amount, that's not part of it. So the base bid is $2,650,000. An alternate 1B at $300,000, alternate 2D at $240,000 for a total bid amount of $3,190,000 is recommended. Available for your information is additional information on per unit pricing. The actual recommendation for the bid is to reduce some of that total 3.190 bid for individualized units, bringing that recommendation to $2,996,000. That is provided on board docs for your information. And I will recommend that the bid be awarded in the amount of $2,996,000 at this time.
I'll make the motion that we accept the bid. Then after it gets a second, then I'd like to make an amendment to that or a suggestion. So I don't know. But why don't I just do?
Why don't you make the motion with the
I'd like to make the recommendation that we accept the Dennis HVAC bid awarded to Carroll Electric. But what I would like to do is to amend that and cover the shortfall of the $170,000 so we could get 4 of the vertical unit ventilators added that was in the original scope. We removed 4 of those units so we could come, because of the bid amount total. But if we go back and add them later, it'll probably cost more, and it makes, with the length of delivery for the units, it makes sense to me just to go ahead and do it all now. And I did have discussion with Karen, and she may have to do some re-advertisement or appropriations, but we could pull it out of the capital cash flow.
And as a fellow Building and Grounds committee member,
If we could get a second, then we can have a discussion.
I was just about to give you a second. I concur with that statement and therefore would like to second the motion.
Thank you, Mrs.
You're still master
Motion by Jeff Schleifer, second by Nicole Stoltz. That's correct, the $170,000 shortfall will come from capital projects, which will require an amendment to the capital plans, unless there's been a change since yesterday.
No, but I need to qualify how we're saying this, because we're not saying it correctly and we're going to have some issues, so.
Please
So that's what
we
we have you here for.
Yeah, so the shortfall has nothing to do with the recommendation, so that's funding and we're gonna leave that alone. So we're gonna award the bid in full with the base bid alternate 1B and alternate 2D to total $3,190,000. That's the recommendation on the table with the modification included that Mr. Sliver suggested. So we'll modify the recommendation to be the base bid, alternate 1B, alternate 2D. We don't need to say all the other stuff, if that makes sense, just because it will be.
Why didn't you tell me that
it will
earlier?
Well, it will just cause confusion for the vendor, and so we're just gonna accept the bid with alternate 1B, alternate 2D.
Mr. Cross, do we need a new motion then?
I think it'd be in order. I think it's a cleaner motion, and I would only supplement a couple of things. Karen stole my fire on the main point. That's okay. But secondly, there was only one bid for this. Now, there would not be any unfair or any disadvantage visited upon another bidder, because this was within the scope of the original project that was bid. So had you had other bidders, this would still be a proper action to take, even though the recommendation came to try to cut the scope, value engineer, if you will, is the term, to be in line with otherwise available funds. So I think if you just agree to withdraw the first motion and
Okay, I'm gonna try this.
take the simplified motion to award as the contract as presented.
I'll withdraw my first motion. She should script this for us next time, shouldn't she? And let's amend my motion to say that we're going to accept the base bid with alternate 1B and 2D.
That's correct, Mrs. Scout.
Base plus the designated alternates, yes.
Yes, thank you.
All right.
And I would like
Motion
to
by Jeff Schleifer.
withdraw my initial second.
I don't think you have to, but go ahead.
Just in case. I'd like to second the second motion.
Thank you, Mrs. Stoltz. Now, any additional questions and comments?
No, other than it makes sense. I think the cost in the long run to, create this system for Dennis is gonna cost us more if we wait and pull those chillers out, so it makes sense to.
And then if you actually read the recommendation from May's Design, they actually recommended we do the 3-point. So, I mean, we're not, it's all within.
But it'll still just cause us a slight shuffling of future capital projects.
Right, so I just wanna make a note for the board, you will have some action items to do in January and February in order to make the amendment to the capital projects plan that we will have to do in order to fund this project. The majority of these funds are ESSER funds, so there are Bacon-Davis rules to that will still have to follow, even though that portion is funded by capital projects. But I just wanna make everybody aware that you're gonna see action items coming in order to finish this process, but it can't occur until January once that budget is approved and we have the order from the Department of Local Government Finance.
And following up on that, what you're doing tonight is the award. The contract itself will have to come back to you for approval. But this is the step that we're involved in.
But this allows them to get the letter out. To the
I think
vendor.
it allows things like lead time materials to be purchased and what have you, because having made the award, the contract relationship has been created, but there will be the contract document to be executed.
And that's the important piece, is getting the notice out so the vendors can get the equipment ordered.
Because that was one of the factors, was with the exceptional long lead times in the supply chain. To get all those units ordered now, that puts us in a much better place. Anything else? All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6-0. Mrs. Scout.
Okay, before you tonight are change orders, and I will briefly, there is one with Carroll Electric for the RHS Mechanical Modernization Project. That amount is for $8,937.27. So it's my recommendation tonight that you approve the change order with Carroll Electric Inc. It is change order number 14-R. So.
Thank you. Happy to entertain a motion.
I move to approve 5.04 change orders as presented.
Motion by Aaron Stevens,
I'll second.
second by Nicole Stoltz. Any questions or comments on that change order? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6-0. Moving on to item 5.05, resolution for board insurance. I guess this is mine. Before you is a resolution modifying the insurance benefits for board members. As we stated at the last meeting, it basically is returning the insurance options back to how they were before the change was made in March, I believe. And then in lieu of that, adding a $2,000 stipend that's always been an option for boards across the state of Indiana. I think in general, that's it. I'd be happy to entertain a motion.
I move that we accept the 5.05 resolution for the board insurance.
Motion by Nicole Stoltz,
Second.
second by Kristen Brunton. Any additional questions or comments? All right, hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6-0. Moving on to item 5.06, recommendation of the Executive Director of Facilities, Dr. Wright.
President Weber, trustees, in an effort to improve upon historic success, Richmond Community Schools continues to review, reflect, and revise current practices to better align with today's ever-growing needs. To provide a comprehensive strategic plan for all of our district's buildings and grounds, we would like to evolve the current structure by combining the current Civic Facilities Director and Mechanical Facilities Director into an Executive Director of Facilities position. Furthermore, I would like to recommend that Mr. Glenn Slifer be appointed to this position as Executive Director of Facilities. Mr. Slifer comes to us with over 35 years of experience in facilities and maintenance management, all right here in RCS. He has been a dedicated and loyal employee, and it is my recommendation as Superintendent that the Board of School Trustees approve Mr. Glenn Slifer as the Executive Director of Facilities, effective November 1st of this year.
Thank you.
I'll motion we approve it.
Motion by Brad Walton,
I'll second.
second by Nicole Stoltz. Any questions or comments?
I want to thank Glenn for his years of dedication, and he has been a pleasure to work with, and he is very conscientious. I've appreciated that, and just want to say that I'm excited about this new endeavor for him.
And I'd also like to thank John Hamilton for his years of service. I know you guys came in together, and it'd be a little bit different for you without him there with you every day too. So it'd be a totally different dynamic. So just congratulations, and looking forward to it.
We still have to vote, I guess.
Yes.
but-
I'm preemptive.
Yeah, so any additional questions or comments? Got me off, Nicole.
Sorry.
Payback's rough, so. I will conclude, yeah, I am grateful for Glenn stepping up. I think combining positions, I mean, there'll be a change, but I think he's up to the task, and super excited what this brings to our facility and operations, and I think it's a great move for RCS. So with that, any additional questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6-0.
Well, for the record, I'm not voting, I abstained.
Okay. All right.
Now I'll say, welcome, Glenn, and thank you for the many years of service. Welcome to the new position, and we'll see you out there bright and early in the mornings.
Well, and with that said, Mr. Stevens, if you don't mind, President Weber and trustees, I do ask that Mr. Glenn Slifer come to the podium and just share of the newly approved assignment, share what indeed he is looking forward to most with the assignment coming November 1st. So, Mr. Slifer, you can join us, sir. Thank you, sir.
I kinda like what you guys have been saying already, so I'm good with this call today to go home.
Go.
But I do certainly appreciate the vote of confidence of moving forward to this next level position. I do look very much forward to moving towards and moving toward a good direction and working together. So, thank you very much.
Mr. Schleifer, I think also I apologize, and I know you are anxious to continue to share with us and stand there at the podium. But, nevertheless, I too.
Get me started. It might be hard to get.
Well, I know that all of your dedicated and committed service to RCS for so many years, yourself and many others within the department there in Warner, along with the custodial crews, those hidden helpers that work their magic on a daily basis to afford our faculty, staff, administrative teams to work their magic during the day. A lot of times you all are working in the dark. A lot of times you all are working in the frigid temperatures of Mother Nature, and you still are getting it done. And so we definitely appreciate you. We look forward to what the future will bring.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, moving on to policy review and update. Item 6, we have 2 policies at first reading. Happy to entertain.
I would motion that we move 6.01 policy 2460 educational surrogate parent and 6.02 policy 2461 least restrictive environment to second reading.
Motion by Brad Walton,
Second.
second by Aaron Stevens. Any questions or comments on either of those 2 policies?
We could actually, could we not include 6.03?
I was just gonna do that one separate.
Okay, that's fine, that's fine. I'm good.
That's correct, but we have a motion for the 2 policies.
I'll second Brad's motion.
Didn't
Aaron,
Aaron already.
Oh, Aaron already did.
It's moving right along, yes. We're at questions and
Man,
comments.
John's just now with us tonight, isn't it?
I got my metronome going, so I'm on track. Any no comments?
No, sir.
All right. Hearing, seeing no additional comments, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6-0. Moving on to item 6.03, bylaw 0144.0, compensation, first reading.
I'll make a motion that we move bylaw 0144.1 compensation to second reading.
Motion by Brad Walton,
I'll second.
second by Jeff Schleifer. Any questions or comments on this one?
Does this just make policy what we decided about health insurance for
This
the board
mirrors the
members? Right.
resolution, yes.
In fact, I thought it would be good for the public to know that and this still has to go to second reading, but with this bylaw as well as the resolution regarding the board insurance, we will effectively be revamping the much disputed $1 insurance, just so that is clearly stated. I know a lot of times all the numbers and the titles, it gets muddy. So just want to make sure that the public knows that that's what's going on.
Thank you.
That's it.
Any additional questions or comments?
I would just comment that the changes in board health insurance participation will become effective January 1 of 2023. There are no changes in the board participation in the group life insurance plan. And it's just clarified that is at the same policy level as the teachers participated.
Thank you, Mr. Cross. Anything else? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6-0. Moving on to 7, board reports and discussion. I think it's been a busy week, so we'll move on to 7.01, educational planning working group. I think Kristen and Aaron were there.
Keith,
Okay.
Yes, so we, and Aaron, you can jump in wherever you want. I brought the agenda and my notes with me. So we talked about the school information system. Brandon came just to talk about Power School and just some updating and some ideas that are floating around on because it's been customized so much. Investigating is that, do we want to stay with Power School? Is there another school information system out there that would be better? And so that's beginning to, a discussion is beginning with hopefully talking with parents and teachers and figure out the stakeholders, what they like about it, what they don't like about Power School. So it's just exploring options at this point and hearing from stakeholders about the information system.
And Power School may be the best option that's out there, you know,
Yes.
as we explore other opportunities out there, it may turn out that this is the most solid one out there. And if so, it does no good to shy away from it, to reinvent the wheel and put that stress on our classroom teachers again. I would add this to just as kudos to Mr. Perkins, our IT director. His presentation was brief, but it was to the point. It was very, very thorough, and even in his dull sense of humor, he seemed very excited.
He would appreciate you saying that.
I'll call him up and tell him. I hope you're listening, Brandon.
I'm sure he's listening.
Oh, yeah.
So he'll probably send me a message in a moment. But it was a very, very good presentation. And so
I think another piece of information on that is we may stay with Power School, but it also may be a reset because there's been so much customization done to our current Power School that we can't accept updates and new stuff in the system now. So, you know.
And he brought that up as well.
Yeah, so it may be Power School, but there still may be some growing pains with that because of the reset. So.
We definitely find ourselves in a juxtaposition with even remaining with Power School if that is found to be the best option. As Mr. Stevens, Mrs. Brunt, and Mr. Morey were informed, and as they shared, the goal is to try and create a sense of customer service, customer care, and most importantly, customer satisfaction in a user-friendly way with all of our Power School users, our administrative team, faculty, staff, and also our parents and guardians who have to navigate through the system and who we've heard from that have not found it as easy to navigate through. But indeed, we have, as you mentioned, Mr. Perkins and his team on it, and we are excited to see what comes about.
Anything else?
Yes, quite a few other things. It's a long meeting. Next we talked about the NIET, just to kind of get an update. And Cynthia Kirk came, who was the district instructional coach, and she updated the education planning working group just on growing the teachers so that they can grow students, and some site visits that have occurred, and just kind of an update on that the NIET is rolling, and some excitement with that and things that she's seeing from her level. Yes, the focus on teaching and learning. She talked about the objectives, things we know about NIET, but the kind of the rollout of it at other schools.
She had visited Charles School that morning, if I recall, and a very successful opportunity to meeting with teachers and in the classroom. And you could tell from her presentation how much she believed in it, because she was just very, very happy with sharing the information with us. And Kristen, we must have taken the same notes because you're.
Did you copy it?
And Dawn, are you able to speak to the video that's being created in regards to that?
Yes, we are capturing some of the work to include in that video. So initially we were going to send that out last week, but as we prepared for the site visits, we thought it would be nice to capture some of the comments of our staff members, educators, administrators, and such. So we are in the process of wrapping up those interviews, and I'm hopeful, Dr. Wright, do you think by Friday?
I believe that
She's getting it in the minutes.
I would love for it to go out to Friday to staff and then to our community. So
No
we
pressure
are
there,
very
Dr.
excited about it.
Yeah.
I'm a one take wonder, so without a doubt.
Just need the final
everybody-
stamp.
So Friday.
Friday. Let's go with Friday.
Ken, did you get
We
that?
definitely want to share that with staff first,
Yes.
to make sure that all K-8 staff have it, and then we will send it out to our families.
By Friday.
Do I hear Thursday afternoon?
Let's not push it
Yeah,
yet.
perhaps. One of the things that, as Mrs. Sansini mentioned, that we truly want to capture with this particular initiative is the collective involvement from so many. To see all of our administrative team members, instructional coaches, as well as other central office leaders in the same room, on the same sheet of music, moving in the same direction, trying to arrive at quality tier 1 instruction. That was something to sit back and marvel. Of such marveling, we are trying to capture that within the video, and I think that there's nothing like peer-to-peer leadership for our faculty and staff. There's nothing like hearing from those that have been directly in the field, experiencing success. And it's one thing to hear me talk about it, but when you see the glow in our educators and our students and other stakeholders, it's really going to capture what the initiative, what the framework's about, and why it is that we're invested in it.
No, I think it'll help cast vision for what's going on and what we hope to achieve as well, so.
And thank you, we have to say thank you to Mrs. Hazelbaker,
Oh,
because
absolutely.
our request of adding different interviews throughout this week and the short time frame among everything else that she has going on. Thank you, Bridget, for being patient with us and making sure we capture what it is we want to share with our community.
Thank you. Number 4.
Next is, Mr. Baker was there to talk about the K-8 math curriculum and assessment, so moving away from NWEA into iReady. And iReady is a mastery of standards, whereas NWEA, as you took the test, it changed based on your level of taking it. So this is a different type of exam or assessment, 3 times a year. So we're beginning to see beginning data from that from our students and looking for growth and a new assessment in place. Okay. And then Cassie.
Well, real quick, so when will we be fully transitioned over to that?
So we are in the process with the Ready Math curriculum. We went with the iReady diagnostic tool, so we're still using NWEA for reading and language.
Okay.
And so what we will do is continue to evaluate the impact of looking at data through the lens of standards mastery versus a RIT score with NWEA,
Okay.
and compare both of those. So we are using 2 platforms, which isn't ideal, but as we continue to learn and grow with the new, we can see what we like, what we dislike. We could go back to NWEA for math if we felt that iReady tool wasn't there. We also could switch from NWEA reading and language to the iReady component if we wanted to look more at standards mastery. So really just giving our teachers and administrators an opportunity to explore that option throughout the remainder of this year. We probably would need to look at piloting. That assessment is part of the formative assessment grant. So there are different assessment tools that the state allows us to use those funds for. NWEA and iReady are both on that list.
Okay. Thank you.
Among other options.
And I guess one of my concerns, just thinking about the amount of time is the new assessment, but they seem pretty equivalent 3 times a year, and the length of the test. Having
The only bad
he
thing
explained
about that
to be
is
similar.
it seems like, this is not a cut, but it just seems like between the state and the programs, it seems like every year we lose our baseline data. It seems like every time we push back that it's hard to have continual data that you can accurately measure if you're always changing the baseline.
I mean, if we
So
started the year with this
comparison
one.
would be nice.
But it does make sense to since it goes with the new math curriculum
Right.
too. Obviously they're gonna test what they know. I think that seems a perfect time to try.
Next, Mrs. Laudermilk was present at the meeting to talk briefly about STEAM and the grant awarded, which we saw $75,000, and she kind of gave us a breakdown of that, which went between teacher stipends and material and trainings. I don't have it in front of me, but basically that's the scope of it.
Can I share,
Yes.
can I interject and share
Yeah,
something
please.
about that? Because we had a meeting today, Mrs. Laudermilk, myself, and Dr. Adam Scribner from IU Bloomington, who's a professor in their College of Education with a STEM focus. And so we are super excited about that training. It will be 4 site visits, most likely second semester, with Dr. Scribner. And then this will include not only the STEM initiative or STEAM, initiative at Hibbard, but also outreach to each of our elementaries and middle schools, because one of the things that we want to continue to do is not only provide that opportunity next year at Hibbard, but also outreach into our buildings so that all students have an opportunity to engage in STEAM activities. And so with this grant, not only will we be focused on the staff in the STEAM program, but also can incorporate teacher leaders, whether it's a science math consultant, whether it's a 3rd or 4th grade science teacher, as well as an art teacher from each of our buildings to engage in this professional development. So we are super excited. And yes, kudos to Mrs. Laudermilk for the work that she has put into this grant and just continuing to see out the vision of the work. In addition to that, we will be interviewing for the STEAM position. So things are definitely rolling, and look forward to continuing to give you updates on that project.
If we're going to start doing the site visit, is the posting still up for the coordinator for this? Or was she going to talk about that?
No, I think they're interviewing, I believe, next week. They have some candidates, and I think by mid-November was the goal to have someone hired.
I was kind of hoping that
Yeah.
the future coordinator would be involved in the site visits.
Yes, they absolutely will.
That was brought up.
Yes, it was.
Oh, yes.
And I think that's something we talked about in the finance group too, because we're starting to think about STEAM, is that coordinator hopefully will guide us as to, what this vision is going to be, and how much money and what needs to be done.
Because at some point,
Yes.
it also needs to get to the facilities.
Facilities, correct.
And Mrs. Loudermilk talked about those who would be involved with the selection of the coordinator, and it's going to be an eclectic group, which is going to reach out and have input from so many different people who are going to be directly affected by the STEAM as well as the position itself. And so I enjoyed her presentation, one of those things to the Bloomington Partnership. But she had an excitement on her when she was talking about the laser printers. Yeah.
Glowforge? Is that right? Glowforge?
I want one.
But you know, Mr. Stevens, to that excitement, when, as Mrs. Sonsetti so often stated, seeing Mrs. Loudermilk own this initiative, and own this process, and see the work and the torch that she has carried along with the support of Mrs. Sonsetti and others, it just, I think bright days are definitely ahead, and I think we just need to remind ourselves to the presentation that Mrs. Loudermilk shared with us earlier this year, that this is a multi-tiered process, and with such a process, we will indeed achieve our goals and get to the point where we'll have one heck of a STEAM experience to offer our community school system and the students in the future. So yes, but yeah, she definitely was glowing as she has, and we're excited that she is at the end.
Thanks for the update on all of that.
And our next.
You want to take
Go.
Okay, the calendar, well, we just, during the ed group, we had just an update on the calendar committee that I'm not a part of.
And I couldn't make it yesterday.
So the calendar committee is made up of administrators, educators, and parents, but they're looking at the future calendar, just thinking about, bad weather and arrival and dismissals, just looking at everything and trying to brainstorm what would be best for our future, thinking about PD, professional development, also how that will be incorporated in. So kind of just brainstorm, but really that group is the group that's gonna come up.
I meant to talk to Mrs. Sunseed earlier. I received her information and I saw there was a meeting yesterday. I guess I would charge the calendar committee with starting the calendar to what's best for students. And I'm sure you do, but from that, and then we add in everything else. But that would be your leading, what's the perfect student calendar?
Well, I was glad to see that parents are involved in the committee, because parents are representing and advocating for what's most important for students. So,
And President Weber and President Weber and trustees, because I know that this has indeed been a conversation, and we definitely brought current calendar before you a few times. But I want to ask Mrs. Sonsetti, just if she doesn't mind, I want to put her on the spot, but share the experience that she and several of our central office leaders had yesterday in that meeting with the diverse group of committee members, because to your point, I think that there indeed was some focus on.
Well, I think the point, or my point, is to not be boxed in by what we have on paper already, to not have preconceived ideas, and to, you know, if I had the perfect student calendar, what would that look like? And then, okay, now we want to add PD, now we need, you know, some breaks, and we want to, you know, all the other get tos or need tos or want tos maybe, but start with the student approach, because that's.
Are we, the calendar committee's looking at 24, 25, or is it before that?
Yes, so
I
yesterday.
mean, we're not talking about changes for next year, right?
We are talking about changes for next year's
Okay.
calendar. We do not, right now, we just have a calendar through this school year. So I will say it was a positive experience. We had approximately 25 people that were engaged in the conversation, educators, parents, administrators, central office staff, and we divided into 4 groups. If you know me, I like an aggressive agenda, but we did discuss different topics and just tried to brainstorm what, if it were in a perfect world, what would we want? What do we like about our current calendar? What do we not like? With professional development, we know that it's a struggle at the secondary level to get in meaningful amounts of times. The 30 minutes each week doesn't seem to be enough. So we heard from high school staff regarding that. The conversation of synchronous instruction and what to do with inclement weather days was discussed. Obviously, the physical days of when is fall break, when is spring break, when do we start? Those things were all discussed, and then it kind of led into arrival and dismissal. And I know that we've had some great improvements this week with our routes for busing. And so one of the things with the shortage, we've done, I think, as much as we can right now to support the current routes with the less drivers. However, if that still doesn't solve the problem, we could look at staggering some of our building times that start at the same time. So again, lots of conversation. I will say the first task we gave this team was just to brainstorm and think. Put everything down on chart paper that you could possibly think of, and then our plan is to come back in 2 weeks and revisit. We definitely looked at other calendars, so we had printed different school calendars from other districts because we have a lot of autonomy within the district, staying within the guidelines of the state with certain requirements to make those decisions. And so we wanted the team to know that, you know, there was nothing out of the question. Tell me what you want ideally, and then I'll work with the DOE to make sure that it fits in all of the boxes that it needs to. So I can speak from facilitating that. We also had some people that participated, but I do think we have some meaningful feedback from those stakeholders.
And to Mr. Weber's point, I believe the charge is indeed to keep all of what we do, to keep students at the center, and definitely support of the faculty, staff, and those that are supporting the students. And so I think that bringing students to such a conversation down the road, I think is something that would behoove us, because as I used to share as a school principal, even as a classroom educator, hearing from those that we are actually influencing sometimes confirms or disconfirms that we're on the right track. So
Jamie, what were you going to say?
Just that I want to commend Dawn. It was probably one of the most focused, well-ran, and respectful meetings as far as the time constraints, and also really thoughtful participation as far as making sure that the central administration leaders were spread out, the building leaders were spread out, our teachers were spread out, and our parents and stakeholders, so that really everything was student-centered from the different looks of what a student-centered decisions would lead. And it certainly was the only parameter is that there aren't any parameters right now is how we led that discussion, thanks to Dawn. And I just want to commend her because it was very well led and focused, and it was great feedback, and I left that energized with the work. So
I know one of the things, I mean, there's boatloads of research on start times, and that's something we have never addressed. And I mean, I think, I'd love us to, I'm not saying we alter them, but different grade levels have, the kids, high school, the kids, a 7:30 start or 8 o'clock start is not ideal. And so I'd love us to take some of that research into account, and maybe it works for us, maybe it doesn't, but at least ask those questions. And it sounds like we're definitely heading in that direction. So I appreciate that. I appreciate not having any, at this point, keeping those constraints as limited as possible.
Better get somebody from the athletic department to do
They were,
They were invited.
yeah, I think there was somebody on the list, yeah.
it. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, having a swimmer,
Yeah.
people do what they need to do. So I think just having all parties involved and having a process that I think is geared to getting the absolute best result we can hope for is very, very good to hear. So, thank you. Anything else from education?
No.
Our next meeting is November
28th.
28th.
Yes, thank you.
28th.
All right. Moving on to 7.02, building and grounds. Jeff, Brad, Nicole.
We haven't met yet, but we got a new executive director to talk to next week, so it's coming.
But I do have a couple things. Speaking of swimming, I would love to hear, and I would love for the public to hear what the latest is in regards to the pool. And so I don't know if he wants to.
I guess I can kind of jump in a little bit. Maybe I know more than the average bear right now. It's a little dangerous on this one. So I have to commend the athletic department. They've worked extremely hard to make some things happen while we get the pieces in place in order to finish what needs to be finished for them to get in the pool on the mechanical systems. And I also have to say thank you to Mr. Glenn Slifer and Mr. Kevin McCurdy, because they really buckled in and tried to think outside the box to find solutions, and they did that. So we will be working with Earlham for just a very short period of time for practice until all of those final things that Mr. Slifer and Mr. McCurdy need to have here on site in place. We're talking days probably, and not in fact the agreement is for a very short term, in order just to provide some cushion in case, so that they can practice. And then they will only be able to practice at this time. So the athletic department has worked on moving the meets until the date in which everything is complete and everything is good. And so it is just part of the season, but I mean, it was a multi-person effort. And I went over to the athletic department at one point on one morning when we were having to do some stuff on it, and I mean, it was 3 people in a room with the door shut, just like everybody's on the computer, everybody's looking at calendars, and so a lot of work went into it. And I know that for Glenn and for Kevin it was probably even more so, probably about 100 times that. So big thanks to them. And that was always the intent. It's just really hard for people to know that while you're in process. So I know that everybody really just put forth that extra drive to finish up super quickly. So
Thank you for the update, and also, yes, thanks to everyone who's been working on that furiously behind the scenes.
And the coaches have been very flexible too. My daughter's a swim manager this year, and it's been working out at Earlham and at Centerville so far. So hopefully by the end of this week is kind of the hope.
Yeah.
Great.
And we sincerely appreciate our county counterparts. They're on the other side of the city line, heading westbound, the Centerville Bulldogs, and of course, Roland College, which is a fine institution, as you all know. I'm sorry, I have a bias.
So moving on to the next thing I have. No. The other thing in regards to facilities, the renovations to the Honors Hall bathroom are coming along, and it is looking beautiful. So very exciting. If anybody has a chance to pop in over there, it's looking great. So I've just seen images. I haven't been able to look in person, but yeah. So that's exciting.
Anything else for building and grounds? All right, moving on to 7.03, finance working group, Jeff, Kristen, and John. We met yesterday. When did we meet, yesterday?
I don't know. Yes, the
Yes.
25th, yesterday.
Yeah, yesterday, John.
It's like
Sorry.
2.5 hours.
It was, I knew it was this week.
So
Been a
I'll
long
start
week
us
already.
off here. We
Go ahead,
talked about, and I know our last board meeting, we had a conversation publicly about the dollar raise for non-classified contractual employees. And just, so we discussed that, and no, we approved that at the last board meeting, but we had conversations about those raises and how they impact our staff and what the future holds and what our goals are toward, going above that. So we had conversations about that. We talked about the Dennis HVAC and
That we approved tonight?
Yep, we approved, the base bid and how I think $170,000 was something that was necessary to continue on with that. And just kind of some future planning with finance. We briefly spoke about STEAM, just in the fact that we need to get the coordinator in the position so that we can then figure out what numbers, because as far as we don't have anything to really discuss yet as far as finances when we're not sure what the complete vision is there. So that will be forthcoming.
And just at the future planning was more cash flow statements and cash flow for as ESSER money starts to fall off and data that we're going to try to collect. So it really was more about how do we go about talking about our future funding and future potential shortfalls. So it's more about collecting data and coming back and talking about it there.
All right. Sounds good. Item 7.04, Marketing Working Group, did not meet. I don't know. Is there a meeting coming up? Bridget, do you know? Next week.
Next week.
All right. And then 7.05, other discussion on the floor.
So, Kristen and I, our volunteering tour, so to speak, took us to Charles today and had an excellent opportunity to see all the fun stuff that's going on there with Mr. Jones and his team. And I've just got to share my favorite quote of the day from a first grader was, "I love school so much, I don't even want to go home." So I was like, okay, that's pretty cool that they, she just thought that it was so fun to be at school, loved her teacher, loved everything that they did. I will say that recess was her favorite class, but she loved Charles. So yeah, anything that
Just the energy there is so positive, and the environment, just the physical environment, but also the climate of, talking to teachers and students and the staff there was really inspiring.
yes.
I visited Star today, and I sorted. I never knew the lyrics to the Superman song until visiting a first grade class, and I was talking with the students about what they were going to dress up. It was Halloween, and one young student said, "I'm dressing up as Superman." I'm thinking, Spider-Man. I'm thinking, oh, that's cool. So I started singing as much of the lyrics as I knew. Spider-Man does whatever Spider can. I've never in my life known the rest until this kid got up and he came up and whispered to me in front of Mrs. Jordan, and he gave me the rest of the lyrics. And we all left happy because none of us as adults knew the lyrics to Spider-Man. So it was a learning day for me. And it took me back to my childhood.